Ladies and gentlemen, American Hustle. Thank you for sticking around for the Q&A. I'm Sean Miller. I'm a contributing editor with Backstage. I'm actually also your flight attendant tonight. Please turn off your cell phones or wireless devices. Normally we'd have folks tweeting and Facebooking the night away, but because we are taping this, it will affect the recording if there's any Wi-Fi or cell activity. So please do turn off your phones, and we'll get started here in just a second. We'll get right to you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce David O. Russell, the director of American Hustle. His most recent films, The Fighter and Silver Linings Playbook, have both garnered Academy Award nominations. And we'll see what happens with American Hustle.
Thank you guys for coming out.
Shea Whigham, please come out. You are our next contestant. He plays Carl Elway. He can also be seen on HBO's Boardwalk Empire. Elisabeth Röhm. She plays Dolly Polito, the loving wife.
You won't recognize her with her blonde hair, though.
And last but not least, Paul Herman.
Oh.
He's a pseudo-attorney, Alphonse Simone, in addition to being the Cold Cut King.
The Cold Cut King. Cold Cut King of Long Island.
Thank you all. Welcome.
Thank you.
I think one question to start off with. I don't know, where to begin? I mean, for some of the performers who didn't get top billing in this, I feel like every one of them adds to the story. David, maybe you could talk a little bit about the casting process and bringing everyone in to really round out a full picture for this for this film.
I mean, I would say, I just love working with every one of these actors here, and it means everything to me to create the family that we're creating and to create the world we're creating. And so I'm able to text Shea when I'm writing the script and say, I think your guy is gonna, look like this, and he's gonna listen to this kind of music, and he's gonna be like this, the bad preppy from a nice Harvard family. He's gonna be like the bad kid from that family. And we create a whole story for that guy, and we have a lot of fun. Then we want to make a whole movie about that guy. And so you have to restrain yourself. But it fires up my imagination to write for these people. And Paulie, I've had was so wonderful in Silver Linings Playbook, and and he's so wonderful, as was Shea, and so it was wonderful to have them there again. Paulie, I just feel like they both knocked it out of the park. I mean, when he, not only that, but we'll teach you how to skim because we invented skimming, and thank you for clarifying that. And Elisabeth was a great discovery because I knew exactly what I wanted in Dolly Polito. Just the name, I fell in love with Dolly Polito. That was great. And I didn't really know, to my stupidity, I did not know her, and she was a major ringer. I did not know her work, and she came and I knew right away. I read people with Mary Vernew. Anybody here should go through Mary Vernew, and many times people from these events end up in the pictures. That's how Adrian ended up in the picture with the big hair, who's the assistant to the mayor. Numerous people. But I like the passion of all the actors when they've come to see our picture. But Elisabeth came in red with Mary Vernew, and she just, that was exactly how I saw her. We gave her that black hair with the streaks in it. And we're from the same part of the country as Paulie is. And Shea's from Planet Shea. And so she got the rhythm right away of how these characters talk from, whether it's The Fighter or Silver Linings or this, there's a rhythm to the way they talk. There's a rhythm to the, and she got it right away. She made that house real with those 5 kids.
Well, Shea, maybe you can start. Talk a little about the building that character with David.
Yeah, I mean, he touched on it just a little bit. David, he'd said that, he was writing this, and I think this one we kind of started with Steely Dan was the kind of the inspiration, Home at Last. we started with a song for Carl, and we knew he was going to be Exeter educated by way of Yale. He was going to be the black sheep of the family. When we started chipping away at that, and we had a session one day for about 6 hours. And it all came together. It started to come together, but through Steely, I think through Steely Dan, which you can draw inspiration through the wildest things. And that was, am I right about it? I mean, I think
Well, it's like the guy's theme song, this song called Home at Last. It has a very particular feeling. And I knew I wanted him to have this cigarette holder like Hunter Thompson did. And he had style like Irving did. And he lived in the Chelsea Hotel, which is, if you don't know, that's a very famous hotel in New York. And there were people who had offices and apartments there, and I loved that his secretary was his lover and the whole thing. And she was also from The Fighter. She was the crazy sister who got in a fight with Amy Adams on the porch. That's Erica McDermott, you know. So Paulie's secretary also was from The Fighter. That's Melissa McMeekin. She was also from The Fighter.
We started there, and I mean, you latch on to anything that you can. And with David, you know that you're going to have to be as open as possible. But you got to do your homework, as in with everything, so that he can throw everything at you, and you can duck and bob and weave and start to melt, you know, whatever you need to do, because it gets wild in the process, and therefore he gets the most real performances of anybody out there today, I think. And that's where Carl, I mean, for me, you know, I would text him and I would say, like Jimmy Woods. And he'd be like, what? And I'd be like, I remember Jim Woods quit MIT with like a week left to go and didn't graduate MIT. And I thought, that may be Carl. Like, he went to Exeter, he went to Yale, but he loves the underbelly of putting deals together. And that's where it kind of came out of.
A question for Elisabeth. Mary Vernot, David's longtime casting director, worked on, I think, every one of your films except for The Fighter. Mentioned that she had seen you read or met you, talked you up actually in an interview. And so I was wondering, could you talk about that? Could you talk about reading for Mary?
Yeah, I mean, I had watched the whole Silver Lining playbook and that whole process and been a very big fan of David's and wanted to work with him. But when the audition came up, you know, which just really reinvigorates, you know, my passion for feeling that filmmakers, you know, want to discover new things and new people, and it really was a great blessing to be able to audition for something and have it happen, because so many actors that are in this movie knew David from before. So I hope that is encouraging to all of you. But, you know, I auditioned for a very vague character that, you know, really wasn't scripted. And it was exciting to create a character from the ground up, you know, from the feet up, you know, which, you know, to really understand, you know, everything about her. And David wasn't at the audition. I just had to go on tape for him. And luckily, you know, I got a second chance and got to meet him. Like, you know, Shea is saying, I mean, so much of what you end up doing happens in the moment. And I think a lot of my best moments in the film really happened right there, you know, with David saying, do this, say this, and being so open to it that, you know, it's so alive, you know. But it really started in the beginning with Mary, because when she brought me in, she really didn't give me scenes to read. And I think that feeling of improvisation is a big part of making a movie with David. But like Shea has said, and we've all talked about, I mean, David has a vision of, I think, 20 different versions of how the movie is going to turn out. And it's very specific, and the characters are complete. And he helps them be complete. I mean, he gave me the look and the hair and the brown eyes and everything. And I think it's, you know, great to have found the rhythm. But David, I came to work in Boston, and he said, this is, we're going to spend a couple of days, you know, creating Dolly physically. So then that's what I did for 72 hours with him. And it was something like I'd never experienced, because I had done a lot of television. It was incredibly freeing and awesome.
Question for Paul. You're in really two scenes in the film. Did you feel like you had to create two separate characters?
Well, you know, this is how it is working with David O. Russell. Okay? So he told me I'm going to play two characters. A guy named Nick Falco, who's some kind of mob related, and he's also plays another guy, his name is Ed Malone. But you can't read the script yet. So I get to Boston, and it's the party scene. So he says, you're Ed Malone in this scene. So it's great, whether everybody's eating and partying. These cold cuts, they're all yours. You're Ed Malone, the cold cut kid. Okay? Great, it's a party and so forth. I leave Boston. I come back about a month later. I get into Boston late at night. I'm supposed to be shooting this scene the next day. I get to the hotel room. There's a big scene with sides that say every character and Alphonse Simone. There's no Nick Falco. So I didn't bother learning the scene. I figured they gave me the wrong thing. And it was too late to call David. So I called him early in the morning. I said, David, they gave me the wrong scene. There's no Nick Falco in this scene. He says, oh, I forgot to tell you. I changed your name. You're Alphonse Simone. So if it looks like I didn't know my scene, I didn't.
But you knew your scene stone cold.
Well, that's
You
why
were
it worked
stone
out
cold.
better.
Look how he says those words without blinking. He just goes bam. I mean, he knows his words so good. He just goes bam, bam, bam. Just says every word so real from the heart to Bradley. You know, I'm really pity you came in here because this whole thing could have been settled with a simple wire transfer. Mr. Taleggio, unfortunately, was called out of town on business. I mean, he just is stone cold. I mean, I love these characters, so I live for all the moments with them, and I could make a movie about each one of them. Elisabeth, there were things we came up with when you came in to read that stayed there the whole time, including there's certain gestures that will create a whole character, and I love strong women characters, you know, and that was something that really began with the fighter. And they're so I love that Dolly was like a matriarch of her home, and she helped co-run the city of Camden, and she was a very strong, like a big sister to Jennifer's character, who then gets the nail polish for her. Carmine, smell her fingers, smell her fingernails, smell her fingernails. And this thing from the one you faced, you were like this, when he was having the fight with Krishna at the end, this. Did in the audition room.
Yeah, that's true.
And that survived. That just summarized
Well,
like,
and
watching
also
your
I was
husband
think-
fall apart.
I was thinking about the other day, the laugh. You know, when I auditioned for you, the laugh, you go, laugh like this. You know?
No, not like that. Do it. No, not like that. Do it like you did it in the restaurant. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I'll do it.
Well,
Carmine, smell her fingernails. Smell her fingers. Then you get in, the editor's like this laugh is all over Jennifer Lawrence's lines, and I'm like, oh, that's what we wanted. We wanted that.
well, that leads to another question I had was about the rehearsal process. I think Robert De Niro's talked a little bit about that in terms of you wanting to keep it fresh and not having it.
Well, improvisation is really a misnomer. It's not. As Bradley got very upset after one of these things, and he said, "There's no one improv. There is no improv. There's no people making stuff up, you know, except for me. But I mean, it's like, you know, we have a script and everybody learns the scene and the scene has beats and we rehearse it many times. We shoot. If you came on this set, you know, I rehearsed with each actor individually and then in pairs. Bob De Niro did a lot on the telephone. You know, he would keep me on the phone every day at lunch. Everybody location at a church and I'd be sitting in the van, you know, going over everything about this character because he decided that character is actually true and real. That guy did speak Arabic, and Bob wanted to learn the Arabic. And I said, that's going to be too hard. He said, don't worry, I'm going to learn it. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to learn the Arabic. And that week, based on a guy named, it's not Falco, it's another Jersey mobster that has a name like that. And that guy left bodies in the street. And there was another guy who really was Meyer Lansky's right-hand guy who did start the casinos, who spoke
Nucky
Arabic.
Thompson.
What's his name? What? Nucky Thompson.
Details, you know, Shea knew him so he could text him. But I had, like I said, this period of time when I came in early and was completely nerve-wracked and like, oh my God, you know, trying to figure out all the steps of this character. And so that's pretty extensive and very, very, very detailed for David. He has a very clear vision, and until he sees it, you're gonna keep doing it again and again. But when you come to set, and I remember Bradley really talking about this, and he said it so well, once you get there, the cameras are rolling, you know, it's completely alive. It's everything is 360 happening. David's right behind the camera, and you feel him and you're performing for him, and then he may throw something out at you, but the whole thing is alive. So rehearsal in that sense in the TV version, it doesn't happen.
Well, we shoot the rehearsal, so
Yeah.
we'll shoot. If you came in our set, there's no lights or C-stands. It looks like a room. It would just look like a room because we light it from above or through the windows so that it's just a space. The actors can go anywhere. And the Steadicam will go around the room during the scene, and we'll just keep doing it till over there. And they've been doing the scene. I said, Bradley, tell her you love her, but really tell her you love her like tell Amy, make sure. And as a man, he knows what I'm talking about. And he went and told her he loved her till she felt it. He said it 3 different times. And he got down to her eye level. He said, I'm in love with you. And you could see her kind of buckle. It just happened. She buckled and she melted, and she did something that was never directed. She leaned towards him and kissed him, and she melted into him. So by the time she revealed herself, she had already sort of melted. So it was just an extension of that moment. So it made sense. He couldn't handle it, of course, or he.
Jack was going into this, and he was scared out of his mind to be working with David because he had heard, he'd heard just all kinds of amazing stories, but scared stories, and he got on there. I think he killed it. He was tremendous. But anyway, but yeah, you do. When you're in those scenes, like the scene where we're about to take the money and it's coming across, and I say that I'll do that. I'll handle that for the mayor, and it is because everyone's on. You're all feeling it in the room, and I think you feel it. I think you feel it up on screen.
It's okay to be scared, and that's what Robert De Niro said, because there's an immediacy to that. I'm scared. It's a scary thing to make a movie. You got to make it be real. I'm not going to fake it. I'm scared. So if everybody else is scared, that's appropriate. And we're going to jump together. We're going to jump together, and I'm going to put my heart out there, and then these guys are going to give me a piece of their hearts. And Jack Huston, loved working this way, and he's a beautiful guy, and he really loved the film. And it was very funny because that kiss scene with Jennifer and Amy, that was an idea Amy had because she felt the electricity between the two women. And I said, I don't know how we would do it. And
before you go in, it's already happening. And as it's happening, things are going to happen that you have not planned, and you're prepared for that. And so, like you said, that does create this electricity amongst the cast, but it starts with David because the preparation's already alive. Right before we went into the ocean room, when we got there, before we even got to the doors for the ocean room, we were already it's like Shea said, he gets there, he's talking to Irv. You know what I mean? We're talking, I'm talking to Irv, I'm Dolly, I'm talking to Irv. And this is all happening, and what you're prepared for is the unexpected because you know who you're working for and with. And that's electricity.
For every actor out there, it's a great lesson because what David does is he gets you out of the head and into the body. And what I mean by that is you have these actors, sometimes you work with their planners. They go into the room and they're in there and they're planning everything out, and they're mirror actors, what I call them. Or they're planners. I'm going to go in, I'm going to do it like this, I'm going to do it like that, I'm going to do it. And they don't have the ability to flow with anything when someone gives you, instead of going left, they zig right. And they go, well, that wasn't how I planned it in my room. Well, that doesn't work like that when you come into this. You have to know it so well and know it so that you're able, there is no planning here. And that's why everything is in the moment. And I think that's why it works so. That's why he's the best right now at it.
I want to have fun with it. A movie otherwise, if you don't have a very script we worked very hard on, you can't do it in those days. It's a very complicated story. This is a complicated story, as was Silver Linings, deceptively complicated, because we try to make it seem effortless and accidental, like you're almost dropping in on this. But that takes a lot of work and a lot of craft in the editing room and with these actors, from all the Skyping and all that stuff. It's a lot that goes into catching that spark and then doing it in a rhythm that then can be cut tight. And I tip my hat to every one of them because they're the lifeblood, and it's the love that I have for all those characters that they bring to life that I get sad when it ends. And I get sad when I have to say goodbye to those characters. And that happens on every movie, especially the last 3.
Well, guys, I'm going to open it up to questions here. Anyone in the audience like to throw a question at the panel?
Shared that. Ditto with I've Got Your Number. Jack Jones sings that, the great Jack Jones, and by the time the camera lands, they're in sync, Amy and Christian singing to him. Home at Last was sort of the theme song of Carl, which gave you the whole energy of that room. So I'd play it in the room, and you'd feel what it was like to be with Carl, which was kind of warm, kind of complicated, kind of fuzzy, but sort of maybe layered and a little shady, like the saxophone in that song. The Bee Gees song, which is operatic, I like to pick songs that are considered unpopular or cheesy, because very often there's hidden gold in those songs. So like Christian Bale and Melissa Leo singing I Started a Joke in The Fighter, which I had to fight to make happen, because I expect of emotion, character emotion, camera movement, and music.
Anyone else here in the front?
Picking up on that topic, the music, I wanted to ask you, David, if during the writing process you had any songs in mind when you were writing the script initially, or if it was in post.
I just named a few of them, like Duke Ellington, the Bee Gees.
I wasn't paying attention.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm also ADD sometimes. So we'll just go home. You watch it on the internet. You watch the replay.
I've seen it twice too.
But a bunch of those were written in there, and then a bunch of them were discoveries with the remarkable music supervisor Sue Jacobs, and Danny Elfman comes in and is able to fit like a glove to the emotion of what you're doing. People think of him as being large, like with Tim Burton, but he's also did Good Will Hunting, and they forget that he also did Promised Land with Gus Van Sant, and he's a great artist in every level.
Now, I'm just going to jump in here real quick. Now, there's dance numbers in the last
I
couple.
didn't know Matt Damon was going to interview us tonight. Matt Damon from Good Will Hunting. So the dance sequence and then the music in this picture with Jeremy singing Delilah with Christian Bale, a very beautiful moment for the two of them. Jennifer singing Live and Let Die. Cooper dancing. It's just with Amy. I guess that's part of the magic, you know.
You over there? We've got two, but you first.
I'm sorry, pardon?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
We've got two.
Thank you. The editing was fantastic. I really tend to notice that, and there were several instances where they showed the end of the scene and then they went back and showed how it progressed up to that point.
Crispin was on The Fighter, Jay on Silver Linings, and Crispin on Silver Linings. Added Alan Baumgarten, music editor Phil Tallman, and I go from room to room, we do sequences, and we debate, and we cut, and we debate, and we cut, and you're not precious about it. That's why Harvey Weinstein could come in, or in this case, the blessed Megan Ellison, patron saint of cinema. She could come in and let's hear it. I want to hear it, and let's find a way to make it better. But I very often will email cut orders that I see as we've shot the scene with preferred takes, and very often that survives, and sometimes it doesn't survive.
All right, we've got time for a couple more. Gentleman here on the left has been very adamant.
Thank you. You guys are awesome, everybody. David, I wanted to know, I'm a big fan of voiceover, and you had multiple voiceover. Were there challenges? What were the challenges when you're writing? Also, do you plan to dip into TV anytime soon at all in your
If
lifetime?
they'll let me. I mean, I can't figure TV out, you know? I mean, everybody who's in TV is like, oh, sure, time. Or you do it on his iPad from location where he is today in the Canary Islands, and because you're crafting it like a glove, like a garment the whole time. You have to keep crafting it. And it's a wonderful discovery in the editing room. Oh, look, we can do this cinematically, just like we did Led Zeppelin in The Fighter over a whole crime sequence. We can do this without dialogue and have Amy describe it, or have Christian describe it. Christian, could you do this? Okay, let me switch from my voice now to this voice of Irving, and I'll do it for you, and I'll send it to you on my iPad. And he came in quite a lot. Amy came in quite a lot. Bradley did it constantly. So that's the devotion of the team. They're constantly creating this with you together, So that was a wonderful thing, the voiceover.
Well, I know there's a lot of SAG-AFTRA members here tonight, so maybe we can have an acting
immersively that. It was like mumbles. You couldn't hear anything he was saying, and he didn't want to change that because he said that's how the guy talks. And then finally he came back to me and said, "Oh, I see. If you don't understand what I'm talking, you'll get bored of listening to me." I said, "Right." So, he's very immersive. So he spent a lot of time listening to Irving, and he was very important in that actually the guy's name was Mel, but we created our own person, but he spent a lot of time listening to the guy, Mel. Because the guy was on 60 Minutes, and the guy was like a hobbit, or like a badger, or like a, Christian became this little badger, and he herniated a disc, and to me his voice just becomes a whole other thing, and it goes up in pitch when he's fighting with Rosalind, which I love when it cracks like an adolescent voice. I would argue that he did things that Bob never did in a way, and thank God. And when I introduced Bob to him on the set, everybody was on the set, and everybody was in makeup and character. And I'm sorry if you've heard this story before.
Their generosity, you have to be open as the character. It's kind of tricky to say, but he's that open with Bradley, with Jennifer, with Amy, with me. I did a Malick film with him right before this, and I came in as a character, he came as a character, and he didn't remember it even. I didn't even say anything to him. When I got here as Carl, he was like, he put two and two together. You know what I mean? So we met each other again for the first time. But very open. That's crucial. And when you're working, when you're putting characters together, you can't be so into your own stuff that you can't connect. Otherwise it won't pop.
That's what makes this family of actors, Alessandro, Louis C.K., Bradley, everybody here, amazing.
I love the way he works because he works more or less the way I was trained, which was more of a Sanford Meisner way of working, where you're really responding to the person that you're working with. So your performance is not in yourself, in your head, it's in who you're working with. And David makes that even more important because not only are you working with the person you're working with, but he interjects and throws suggestions